I'm Leanne Tran, psychologist who's worked with families whose kids don't fit the mould for almost 20 years. I've worked with children for decades, but I know parents are the real change makers when it comes to their kids. Having 3 kids of my own means I know it's not easy. Parent Like a Psychologist is all about simplifying how you support your kids with psychology information filtered through years of experience to take you from overwhelmed to confident. Come on in. Hey parents, welcome to another episode. Today is a great one where we're going to talk about creating a calm home. If you ever find yourself yelling more than you want to, or feeling like the noise and the mess and the constant demands never stop, then this episode is for you. We're talking about simple changes that can make a big difference. And so many parents that I talk to feel like home is loud and chaotic and full of tension, and they just wish it could be more peaceful without needing to be constantly on or constantly taking energy and being stressful. And so I want to reassure you that your home doesn't have to be perfect to feel calm. You can tweak your space a little bit and your routines to help support your child's nervous system and even your own. And that is going to reduce that pressure and, you know, that feeling of always having to be on and like it's effortful to keep everybody calm. And I do feel there's a bit of irony in me recording this episode today when I've just had to start like 2 or 3 times, had false starts because my dog is going a little bit crazy, and she um, has is going through this crazy period where she barks at light, and it's light all day, and so the light of the sun reflects off her name tag and bounces around the floor, and she goes crazy at it. And so it's funny time because I'm trying to deal with that and then got into this episode about a calm house. But it's probably interesting too because it helps me see that. And so what I do, because a dog is a dog, she can't understand what I'm saying to try and explain to her. It's just the light, and she's got no idea what I'm talking about. And so the things I do is to change the stuff in the environment. So we maybe pull the blind down a little bit so there's less reflection, take off her collar at home so she's not constantly irritated by the bouncing light. And so really it is, there are a lot of parallels, not saying treat your kids like a dog, but I'm saying sometimes the only thing we can do to change the behaviors is to change the environment. It won't change everything, but it can make a really big impact. So I want to start by talking about why the environment matters, some simple little tweaks that you can do for the environment and then for routines, and then um, tell you where to go from here if you need some more help. So, why the environment matters, and this is particularly thinking about kids with neurodivergent, so autistic kids, ADHDers, anxious kids. So, sensory processing is a big part of autism. It is difficult to manage when you have unmet sensory needs. And so that might mean needing a lot of input for things like movement and touch. It could be sensitivity as well. So, sensitivity to things like lights and sounds and smells. And so, when you are constantly trying to regulate your sensory system, it increases your stress. Uh, it gets to a point where it can make home feel kind of overwhelming, or in some cases, unsafe as well, extreme cases. And so, that's really common in autism. I would say with anxiety as well, those things that can be irritating can just really ramp up anxiety. When kids are anxious, they also will have lower resilience to things that are irritating them. And for ADHD brains, I think too that sometimes it's sensory or sometimes it's just things that make it harder to process the environment, like, um, having a lot of physical clutter, for example, that's hard to find what you need. But when your brain is an ADHD brain and struggles to organize things and execute tasks already, then to do that in the clutter and chaos becomes extra difficult. So the sensory processing, sometimes it's the physical clutter of things. And it's important to note too that when I'm talking about environment, it is about the physical environment, but what's part of our environment is also routines and the flow of our activities and things like that. And so if you think about it, like if you're in this really uncomfortable office that's got like bad lighting and it's stinky because of whatever reason, someone's heated something up in the microwave, or it's just this damp old building, um, and the lights irritate you or they don't work properly and the internet is slow, you're already feeling like just unhappy and not as productive and calm. But imagine then if you added on to that there wasn't really a consistent flow to the workday. Some days they started with the expectation that everyone comes for a meeting. Some days they start with the expectation that you get all your work done. Some days tasks are due at 9, some days they're due at 2. Maybe there's not clear communication from the bosses, there's not clear expectations. It start like there are things about the environment that aren't actually physical. It's about the flow of the day, it's about how things are communicated, and it's about how easy it is to understand the expectations. All of those things are factors of the environment in our homes as well. And so we can think about all of those factors and whether they're contributing to our child's stress or contributing to them feeling calm. It also will be either contributing to us feeling stressed or us feeling calm as well. Um, I remember, this is off topic a little bit, but I love to travel, and so was reading, I don't know, travel blog or book or article or something, I can't remember, but it was talking about how everyone on the trip is only as happy as the least happy person on the trip. And this was particularly about traveling with small kids, so toddlers at the time. I went on a family holiday and we had, I think, 3 two-year-olds amongst us all, and so we were like, "Okay, we're all aware here that we're only as happy as the two-year-olds are." Because if they are fractious and stressed and unhappy, everyone else will be as well. So it's really important to think about that in terms of your family at home. You won't be calm and happy if your kids aren't, and they won't be if you aren't either. So it's it's a really important part of functioning well as a family. The other thing too is I think it's just overall stress levels as well. If everyone is calm, things are easier. If everyone is stressed, things are harder. So let's talk about some of the environmental tweaks that you can make to make things a little bit easier at home. I would encourage you to not overthink this too much, but also ask for help if you do need help. And so when I want to talk about the sensory parts of the environment first. And so this could be, I'm going to talk about light, sound, and visual things, also a little bit about the touch and pressure. For lighting, um, if you can avoid overhead lights that are really bright and maybe use soft lighting, if your kids are sensitive to big lights, then that's what I would recommend. It's worth the price of a lamp to have everyone a bit more chilled. Um, That's also really helpful for sleep as well, so we never have the big lights on in our house, we've only ever got the little small dim ones on. Um, in terms of sound, if your kids are sensitive to sound, you can put in place things like quiet zones. You can let them have noise cancelling headphones or loops or things like that. Sometimes, if they're sensitive to sounds, you can also use things for sleep, like white noise machines that block out all of the unexpected sound, and they just provide a sound that's consistent and stable, which can be really helpful. If your kids see, this is the bit where you need to think about your own child and don't overthink it too much. If your kids love noise and love music and sound, have some times in the day where they can do that so that they um, can meet that need and feel happy inside. The visual clutter is something, so with visual information, if your kids are sensitive to that or feel overwhelmed when there's a lot of things around, you might wanna try and keep surfaces clear, use baskets or, boxes to try and keep things organized, and it reduces all of that visual clutter or visual noise, if you think about it that way. Um, if your kids are very perceptive to visual stuff, it means everything they see, they'll be processing. So trying to keep things as calm as possible is great. On the flip side, if they really love looking at visual things, maybe make sure they've got some sensory things that they can use to look closely at things and really experience the joy they get from that. You can also do things like setting up a calm corner that is made up of all the things that your child finds calming. So, their particular textures that they like, the fidget tools they like, with low lighting, assuming that's what they like. And so they have a space where they can go to that's just kind of set up for them. And then the other thing I would encourage you to do, so that's all sensory stuff. And I think you either um, just go for what your kids seem to like. If you have trouble with that and you're not alone there and you're not doing it wrong, for some kids it's complex because they, for example, don't like any noise except the noise they make. And it can be a lot harder to try and work out the right kind of levels for everything. And so that's something you can get help with. It's something we talk through um, in my program. So yeah, come along and join, and we can work it out along the way together. The other things I'd encourage you to do are look at the routines and predictability side of the environment as well. So, setting up predictability with things like a visual schedule or a daily um, rhythm chart. And so that's where you're trying to keep the flow of the day consistent. So, things like wake time, meal times, bedtimes, as much as you can keep that consistent, it just goes a long way towards the predictability and routine. There's always times you can change it, but if you've got that predictability down pat first, it's going to make it a lot easier. I'd encourage you to use visual information because that's great for all kids who are neurodivergent, autistic, ADHD, and anxiety, among other things. It's almost like, when we go to work, we all have a calendar, that's the predictability, but we also all probably have a diary where we write down the stuff we're meant to do. And so that gives me a lot of, what's the word, reassurance and calm in my job. And I think for kids, it can give reassurance and calmness as well. It's predictable and they have a way of referring to what's going to happen each day so they don't feel like they need to remember, first of all, which is really hard for anxious kids to do. And then also, they don't feel out of control, like they might be surprised at any moment. Uh, you can even then build some things into the routine that's going to help your kids manage it. So, two of the big ones I'd suggest there is building in um, time and warning for transitions. So, for example, about in 10 minutes, we're going to be turning off the iPad, or, in 10 minutes, we'll put this puzzle down and put our shoes on for school and stuff like that. And then also building in quiet moments as well. So, times when your kids are just managing that transition, or perhaps even just their energy levels. So, for example, in my house, after we do that thing of telling the kids that the screen time ends, I don't give them any other request or demand for the first 5 or 10 minutes. Once they've put down the screens, I'll be saying, this is your time to just adjust. I say adjust back to the real world. Um, and it's because I think they need that time to not feel rushed and pushed into then, doing the next thing, and then the stress rises. And it can also be, for example, time after school to decompress as well. So not having the expectation that you'll straight away do homework or put your bag away or even have afternoon tea. It's just that no pressure time um, built into the routine. So there's a bit of reassurance here that when I'm talking about the environment, you don't need to renovate, you don't need to drastically change what your house is like. Um, just think about one small change to try here. Think about the one that might make a big difference if you did it. So it might not be the easiest thing, but you might think, man, if we did have lamps instead of the bright lights, that would probably make a massive difference. Then go for that one. One small change and see how it goes. And that's a really great way to then know if your strategy worked or not. If you do everything at once, you don't quite know what works. And so then when it becomes really overwhelming to keep it all in place, you don't know what to keep doing and what to get rid of. So just try one thing at a time and see how it goes. The goal is not to be perfect, it's just to have a more peaceful home that helps everyone feel safer, less stressed, and less reactive. And so think about it where you're creating a space where your child can breathe, and you can breathe. And if you've got that um, down pat, then the stress will reduce. And as I mentioned, it makes everything else easier. So there are some resources that can help you with this on my website, which is learn.leannetran.com.au /free. And there is where all of the free resources are. So there's one about visual supports, there's one that's a guide to creating a calm home. And there's some like an ADHD pack that are specifically for strategies for ADHD kids. So go there if you need a little bit of extra help. Get in touch if you want to as well. On the page where you can work with me, you can book in a time to have a chat for 15 minutes if you want to find out whether some extra help would be the right thing for you. And let me know how you went with whichever strategy you picked. And I really hope for you that it's a really calm, enjoyable week. And if not, I'm here if you need some help. So get in touch. Thanks for joining me again, and I will hang out with you again next episode. Thanks for listening to this episode of Parent Like a Psychologist. If you found it helpful, please share on Instagram so other parents can benefit too, and tag me at Leanne Tran Psychology so that I can say a big thank you. Head over to leannetran.com.au to join the village for bite-sized psychology tips straight to your inbox. I really hope this podcast has brought a new perspective and you a step closer towards a calm parent and a thriving child. Have a delightful day.